Let's get right into it. Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to completely decode the exact methodology and data behind how the Glow K-pop Songs 50 US chart is actually calculated. If you've ever glanced at a chart countdown and wondered, okay, how exactly are these rankings assembled? Well, you are in the perfect place. We're going to break down the nuts and bolts of this highly specific, incredibly data-driven map of American music consumption. You might think ranking a K-pop track is just about who has the loudest, most dedicated fandom, or maybe whoever gets the most YouTube comments, or spamming the most hashtags on social media. But the reality? It is a strictly measured, highly mathematical process. There's no editors sitting in a room picking their favorites, and it's definitely not a fan poll. Instead, it asks one very objective question: which eligible K-pop songs were consumed the most heavily by people in the United States during a specific week?
And there is a massive reason why we even need to ask that question in the first place. Luminate's 2025 data is actually pretty wild. It shows that over 1 in 3 American K-pop listeners are super fans. We're talking about people who engage with the music in at least 5 different ways. They stream, they buy physical copies, they follow the artist, grab merch, buy concert tickets. That's a 33% engagement rate compared to just a 20% average for general US music listeners. That kind of uniquely powerful ecosystem absolutely requires its own dedicated measurement.
So here's how we're going to break this all down today. First, why measure K-pop separately? Second, defining the K-pop ecosystem. Third, calculating a Glow unit. Fourth, which streams and sales actually count. Fifth, keeping the countdown current. And finally, number 6, what number 1 really means.
Okay, kicking things off with Section 1. Why measure K-pop separately? Why not just rely on the overarching standard charts we already have?
Well, the core issue here is visibility. Imagine a vitally important K-pop release drops, right? It generates massive American consumption. But on a general chart, it could easily get completely buried because it's fighting against literally every major pop, country, hip-hop, and rock release all at the exact same time. The Glow K-pop Songs 50 doesn't lower the standard to chart, it just changes the field being measured. It isolates the American K-pop market so that those mid-level successes, the songs building real, authentic audiences before going totally mainstream, actually have a place to shine.
Moving right along to Section 2, defining the K-pop ecosystem. Because, spoiler alert, eligibility isn't just about what language they're singing in or where they were born. The distinction here is super fascinating. An established K-pop group like BTS, Blackpink, or Twice could drop an entirely English track, and boom, it's perfectly eligible because they operate within the K-pop industry ecosystem. Even a Japanese language version qualifies. On the flip side, an American pop song doesn't magically become K-pop just because they hired a Korean choreographer or because the singer happens to be born in South Korea. It is all about the project's genuine, structural relationship with the Korean popular music industry.
Which brings us nicely to Section 3, calculating a Glow unit, using the Luminate song equivalent framework. Once a song is actually eligible, how do we fairly count its consumption?
So the crucial takeaway here is that not all activities are created equal. Under the 2026 Luminate framework, one verified song purchase gets you exactly 1 unit. But if you're streaming, it takes 100 premium streams, 250 ad-supported streams, or 400 programmed streams to equal that exact same single unit. You can't just slap raw streams and sales together because behaviorally and economically, they just aren't identical. Everything gets converted into a level playing field.
And get this, it requires 700 radio audience impressions to generate just 1 single unit. This is brilliant because it proves the formula balances those highly committed purchasing fandoms right alongside casual radio discovery. K-pop consumption doesn't always look like conventional American pop. Some tracks explode with massive first-week sales, while others are a slow burn through playlists or casual radio. This math makes sure every single pathway to popularity actually counts.
All right, Section 4, which streams and sales count? Because we have to talk about safeguarding the data. After all, what good is a chart if people can just game the system? To distinguish genuine fandom from, automated exploitation, the chart lays down some extremely strict ceilings. Genuine fans replay their favorite songs, so repetition totally counts, but only up to a maximum of 20 counted plays per account per day. For sales, you're capped at 4 copies per customer per week, so you can still collect your different album versions, but it stops someone from buying hundreds of copies just to manufacture chart dominance. And obviously, they are throwing out any VPN manipulation, bot farms, and user-generated content entirely.
Now, you might be wondering about TikTok or Instagram Reels. While a 10-second viral snippet doesn't directly count for chart data, short-form virality works like a 3-step pipeline. First, it introduces the sound.
Second, the viewer actively seeks out the official track on a music service. And third, that intentional full stream is what generates the legitimate chart credit. The system measures the consumption produced by the virality rather than just assuming a passive swipe equals intentional listening.
Next up, Section 5, keeping the countdown current. Let's look at the recurrent rules for older songs. We don't want the chart permanently clogged up by historically massive hits from 2 years ago, right? So to maintain a picture of what's currently popular, songs are moved to a recurrent list over time. For example, a track gets dropped from the main chart if it falls below number 25 after its 20th week. Now, this doesn't erase a song's legacy, it just makes space for the new stuff. But, and this is a big but, if an older track goes super viral or gets featured in a movie and people genuinely start streaming it heavily again, it can completely bypass this rule and jump right back onto the countdown. And finally, we've arrived at Section 6, what number one actually means. After all this intense methodology, what's the ultimate takeaway when a song hits the top? Hitting number one literally just means that that specific song accumulated the highest combined total of those validated US streams, sales, and radio plays during a strict 7-day tracking window, which always runs from Friday through Thursday. It doesn't mean it has the most YouTube views overall or the most Spotify streams on their own. It means it has the absolute strongest, undisputed result after all those eligible pieces of the pie are mathematically converted and combined.
As the definition of a top song makes crystal clear, this signifies commercial popularity and measurable American attention. That's it. It is entirely independent of whether you subjectively believe it has the best lyrics, the tightest production, or the most mind-blowing music video. And honestly, this distinction is crucial. It protects the rock-solid credibility of the chart, and it completely protects your freedom as a listener to just love what you love.
I absolutely love this quote from the methodology guidelines because it just hits the nail on the head. Charts measure behavior, not beauty. It is the perfect summary of the chart's impartial purpose. It is an objective map of listener behavior, not a music critic's review of art. A song critics hate can easily reach number one if it generates the most valid consumption, and a supposed musical masterpiece might not chart at all. It is pure, unadulterated behavioral data.
So, knowing that every single validated stream, every verified digital purchase, and every radio spin acts as a real-time data point on this massive weekly map, you kind of realize that you are actively building this chart. The Glow K-pop Songs 50 US doesn't tell you which song is best or which fandom is superior. It tells you exactly where verified American attention went over 7 days. So now that you understand the math, the rules, and the whole shebang behind the scenes, where are you putting your attention this week?